Mertech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on July the 17th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got some good information for you tonight, so let's just go ahead, click over here to Mertech on Rumble. This is my Rumble channel. This is the video that we're going over tonight, episode 1981. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it, so let's jump into this, okay? And Viper Senior has joined us already. Where we go one, we go all. He's Rumble number 6. That's great. Okay, let's slide down there. I'll get back with you, Viper. Click the Show More button to expand out the description box, and we have information from Dan Bongino. Now I can finally talk about it. Okay. That's going to be interesting. Bongino Report with Vince. Also, Devory Darkins and Wendy Bell Radio, but I do have some shout outs to give from Emirens, just started following my channel. DJ Willie D2K11 just started following my channel. Amy986 just started following my channel. Kenneth Dryden just started following my channel. J. Claimborn just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1980. Stefang 101, GP Wolco 01, and Cottonball 31 commented on my daily news wrap-up. Viper Senior and GP Wolco 01 commented on my episode 1980. VL Diot commented on my extra 762C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 763A. Debbie BS commented on my extra 763B. And looks like Mick Hall Thunder 800 commented on my extra 763C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my videos and your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. And Viper Senior's got his comment in here. Good vinning, fellows. Patriots, where we go one, we go all. Rumble 6 today. Okay, good job. All right. I assume he means evening there. Just his E just kind of dropped off, but that's fine. I know I get in a hurry typing myself. All right, Dan Bongino. Now I can finally talk about it. Okay. Well, let's see what that's all about. Let's see what he's going to talk about.
You ready to take a ride?
Okay.
So it's tragic. It's really tragic that the left-wing and corrupted media was so willing, is still willing to entertain the 2016 election was stolen by the Russians and Donald Trump. Ridiculous absurdities. They still believe this or pretend to believe this. So do innumerable leftist lunatics out there. And yet the president last night, President Trump, gives a primetime address where he lays out intel I'm very familiar with that I promise you is very real about deep state activities. And I don't care what you call it. Again, I can't say it enough. If that term bothers you, I really don't care. Use whatever term you want. The corrupted state, the bureaucracy, the swamp, whatever. I don't care. He laid out to you last night evidence over the past year we've been working our asses off on. And corrupted media types are just there. Oh, Trump's lying. Listen to me. I'm really trying to control the expletives. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. Call me whatever you want. Do not call me a freaking liar. I lived it. I saw it. You're calling him a liar. You're calling me a liar too because I lived it. I've been asked, 10,000 times in digital format. What about that tweet you put out that time about how the Republic basically can't survive what I saw here? Is it starting to make sense now? Folks, there was an organized internal government effort between intelligence community actors, law enforcement actors, DNI actors to just destroy President Trump completely. By the way, by whatever means necessary. This is the tweet. This is after reading another document that he may address in the future, but it's not my role to do it. It's his. I didn't win the presidency. Said, during my tenure here as your deputy, I've relayed to you things that are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. It's not my job to tell you about things that I don't have the power to declassify. I did not win the presidency, but it was my job to warn you. The director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and weaponization. Law enforcement intel, it's a priority for us. Here's the key line. But what I've learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We can't run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. I didn't send that tweet out for any other reason other than I wanted it on the record just how deep the deep state, the swamp, whatever you choose to call it was. I know we're going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book in accordance with the law. We're going to get the answers we all deserve. As with any investigation, I can't predict where it'll land, but I can promise you an honest and dignified effort at the truth. Not my truth or your truth, but the truth. God bless America and all those who defend her. Respectfully, Dan. Folks, the burn bags, the use of FBI communication systems to discuss, shadow governments, keeping information from the president, the Russia hoax, the efforts to protect leaders at the top, even though a lot of people knew they were corrupt. We walked into a hornet's nest. After last night, I'm telling you, I've never been prouder of what the Trump administration in total did over the first year. Folks, I know a lot of you will say and criticized a lot of our decisions early on because you wanted a good guy, bad guy story. And what I was trying to explain to people is that in law enforcement intel, and especially when trying to dismantle an operation, a deep state operation that had been going on for decades. It wasn't new when we got there. It had been going on for decades. Through the entire Trump first term, people hid themselves like ticks. That good guys and bad guys don't present themselves as good guys and bad guys. Listen to me, I can't say this enough. A lot of the bullshit doomer critics, who most of them aren't even authentic or genuine, they're probably being financed to do all this, to just destroy the MAGA movement's credibility from the inside. However, some people just don't know. When you're trying to get John Gotti, for those of you who don't know, John Gotti is he's since passed, but mobster, huge case. Many of you remember. You don't go to a nunnery. Do you get where I'm going with this? You don't go to a nunnery and say, Sister Mary, do you know mobster John Gotti? Why would I know mobster John? They can't help you. You have to go to people like Sammy the Bull. Not a good guy, but bad guys have information about other bad guys. So when people would ask questions like, why didn't X happen? I couldn't tell you, but I just hope it makes more sense now why some decisions were made quickly and some a little more slowly. The communications you saw that were put out there last night, whitehouse.gov and in the president's speech from those FBI systems, those did not surface the day we got there. There were a lot of people and a lot of decisions have been made about that, and not good for them, by the way. And there's investigations, by the way, still ongoing. There were a lot of people who wanted to make that stuff go away. And it took a lot of, but that doesn't sound right. Try again. Before someone finally came in, knocked on the door and said, I think we found it. That's what happened with the burn bags. That's what happened with a lot of these communications. This deep state stuff is real. It's not a conspiracy theory. The president's not crazy. And I know there are a lot of Republicans out there from the more moderate establishment wing of the party that say, hey, there's an election coming up. We need to talk about, affordability. And I get it. The economy, it's the economy, stupid, is real. I understand that. But folks, I don't think the people saying that really understand the base and the listeners to this. We're 10 minutes in. We got 46,000 people here. Who the hell's drawing that at a campaign rally? The answer is we are. We're not even 15 minutes into the show. This is the base. They are extremely concerned about this. Do not gaff this off. I think I've been very level-headed about it. I've had to tell people a lot of things they didn't want to hear about why things didn't happen quicker, why certain people who were bad guys were here and not there. Let's get into some details so it makes a little bit more sense. I'm telling you, this is why I've been so passionate about be careful where you're getting your information. This information warfare against your mind to try and destroy the United States is very real. I've read it. I've seen it. The president discussed it last night. China funding a lot of these organizations. You thought this was organic, generic? It's all AstroTurf. And second, the SAVE Act. Now do you see why we need voter ID? Do you see how easy it's going to be in the future with AI and the theft of massive data sets to go and not only manipulate voters, but potentially register for them if you find out they're in a nursing home or something like that? Now does it make sense why the president, his administration, the FBI, CIA, his DNI now are acting or so concerned? Here's President Trump last night talking about it. And it was amazing to see some, liberal media lunatics play this down. Some voter rolls you can access. And we didn't put them out there for China to go and manipulate them for nefarious purposes. Are you guys knuckleheads? If this was any other country on earth, like Russia, you'd lose your mind. President Trump said this last night about voter rolls in China. Extremely concerning, and that may be understatement of the millennia. Check this out.
They show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible.
So let me tie together what the president said into a bullet point storyline. The president brings up a few things there: election meddling, the deep state, and efforts to hide information from him, which is kind of deep state 2.1. Folks, there are numerous internal FBI communications which we found and many people tried to hide. We wouldn't let it go, about internal actors in the FBI who very serious things are going on with this case that I'm not at liberty to discuss. It's the president's job to declassify. It's not mine. It's not my job to sit here and try to stir you up for clicks. When he's ready to discuss what's going on with the ongoing investigations, he'll tell people to do it. But some of it, we don't want to jeopardize what's going on. It took a long time to find this stuff. what happened was there were certain field offices of the FBI that had information about China, and they're unquestioned. It's tell me the president's lying, I'm going to laugh in your face. China's unquestioned by any rational actor who was involved. They're unquestioned efforts to manipulate public opinion on everything from elections to elsewhere. It's a real thing. There were certain field offices that had information. Now, I said to you before, there were a lot of people in the FBI, it wasn't a small group, who were very concerned about this stuff. And there's email trails of them saying, hey, this is really serious stuff. The problem was the prior leadership of the FBI had already gone up to Capitol Hill and said, like, hey, we don't really have any strong evidence about that. And meanwhile, when we did our homework and started digging, we're like, what are you talking about? This guy right here is objecting strongly to that statement at their own expense, by the way. Imagine what it's like contradicting FBI leadership and the prior director about a foreign meddling thing.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. And, okay, why? I'm trying to figure out why you would want to hide, not talk about China stealing information, private information from individuals here in the United States. Why would you want to keep that a secret? Let me know in the chat or the comments. I don't understand why leadership in the FBI under Biden's reign of terror, why they would want to keep that secret, not let people know about that, not try to prevent it. Why would that be? I don't understand, because I thought the Federal Bureau of Investigation was an organization that's supposed to protect the American people, not cover up things that were detrimental to the American people. So I'm trying to figure out. And another thing, Dan Bongino, when he started out talking about the deep state, the swamp, military-industrial complex, is information that I've been talking to you about for 6 years. Okay? So, I knew it. I'm sure you knew it too. But let's share this out so other people might actually, a light bulb go off in their head. Amazing. This will be in my daily news wrap-up so you can catch the rest of this. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video
that would be
does
needed
come
to
from
register.
the Dan Bongino Show. This is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. He's had 11.5 thousand thumbs up. So, he deserves it. He puts on some good stuff. All right, let's jump back here and see what we have from. Let me close this out here for a second. Yeah, drive careful there, Glow, okay? Take care of yourself, absolutely. All right, she's driving. She won't be able to chat, okay, because she's driving right now. She's at a stoplight to give us a chat to tell us she wouldn't be chatting. But drive careful, Glow. All right, Bongino report. Trump's big reveal with Vince on the Bongino report. Let's see what he has to say. I'm sure it's some good stuff.
Those of you with me live, as always, appreciate you being here on the live show, rumble.com/Vince. If you'd ever like to join it, perhaps you're listening on the audio podcast. We have an amazing Rumble chat going this morning. And as always, it's like, it's a gathering of the entire country, which is a lot of fun. And last night, the country gathered around their television sets, or perhaps their computers or their phones or whatever you use to consume video these days, to observe the President of the United States give a speech about the integrity of American elections. And the message that he had to share was a worrying one about the vulnerability of our elections in the efforts, even within our own government, to suppress this news from not just the American people, but from the President of the United States himself. Last night, the president went through 4 discrete pillars, 4 specific items that related to election integrity that we all needed to know about, and I'll quickly summarize them. One, the vulnerabilities in electronic voting and our ballot counting systems. Two, China's interference and exploitation of theft of American voter data. Three, efforts within the government, within our own government, to suppress and to mitigate any investigation into voter fraud. That includes at the FBI in a credible investigation into voter fraud in Michigan. And then four, finally here, hundreds of thousands of non-citizens located on voter rolls in just a limited sample size, a very limited sample size that the administration was able to gain access to. Over 250,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls there.
All right, and here's something that I don't understand is you would think that the federal government, if people are on these voter rolls that's voting in federal elections, you would think the Supreme Court, I don't know if this is being taken to the Supreme Court or where it is in the legal process. All I know is there are like 29 states that won't release their voter rolls for the federal government to inspect. You would think if there are people on these voter rolls that are able to vote in federal elections, you would think that the federal government should be able to inspect those voter rolls. Does that make sense or not? Of course, we are living in bizarro world, and we will be living in bizarro world for quite a while because it's been 6 or 7 decades that this military-industrial complex, the swamp, the deep state, has been digging a hole right underneath us. Utterly amazing.
So these are all massive, massive headlines on their own. Now, the media did everything they could ahead of the speech to suggest that the president was not going to share anything new, that he was going to engage in conspiracy theories, that he was going to be lying to the American people. Why is he still on this issue? Why is he even talking about this? And then when he gave the speech, you had a number of networks who refused to air it at all. But I found the speech to be completely edifying, revealing, revelatory, new. And that was what we had last night. And I would say any American who is not afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome would walk away with deep concern about the integrity of our election as a bipartisan matter. Let's go through some of the moments last night that the president shared with us. First and foremost, China. China has stolen the voting files of hundreds of millions of American citizens. In fact, the number that the president laid out last night was 220 million U.S. voter files. That's a lot of voter files in a country of 300 million people. That's basically everybody who's registered to vote in America. Here's the president last night.
And some dead people too, and some people that aren't counted because they've come across the border. You know, tens of millions come across the border under the last administration.
Cut one.
Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state very people indicated intelligently from both American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they saying is this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat was divvied out to say the colossal security breach, the more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign.
All right, that's
they
good.
did not want, and they just didn't.
So the president laying out 220 million U.S. Voter files stolen by China. And then subsequently, inside of the United States, there were deep state actors looking to suppress this information to prevent even the president of the United States from knowing it, congressional intelligence oversight. This was all being suppressed about China's election targeting. In fact, it out of the presidential daily briefing. They say that there were significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting that were actively kept out of the president's daily briefing. And in fact, there was another official inside the FBI that wrote that she was running a, quote, shadow government to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political, the president detailed. So we've got a couple elements here. One, China stealing a lot of voter data, which John Solomon was saying last night on CBS. They were asking him about this. Is very, very concerning because of what China can do with that information, with that data, in order to gain access to our election systems and commit voter fraud here in the United States of America. That's a huge element. And then two, the efforts by our own intel community to conceal this information from the president while he was president in 2020. And so this goes directly to the 2020 election. Now, you heard the president just say a moment ago that China had all sorts of efforts that it interfered in the 2020 election with. Can anybody think of one? 2020, I'm going to say a couple of buzzwords, and then I want you to think of any ways that China may have interfered in the 2020 election. You ready? China, 2020. Anybody? Chat? Anybody? If I just say China in 2020, is there anything that you think of? What happened in 2020? Yeah, the flu Manchu. Thank you, Shelly Bean. Yeah, COVID. Freaking COVID was 2020. Where'd that get cooked up? Wuhan, China. What did that do? It ran roughshod over America. What effect did that have on the election? Well, we just changed the way we vote entirely. We did mail-in balloting. We were stuffing boxes. Everything changed in 2020. And ever since 2020, we've been told we've got to run our elections in the most insecure way imaginable because 2020 was great. It went off without a hitch. Yeah. So it's not news that China disrupted the 2020 election. The news is the extent to which they disrupted the 2020 election. Hundreds of millions of voter files stolen. And this information was kept from the president of the United States. Why would you do that? Why would you suppress such a staggering data breach that affects the American people at historic levels from the president of the United States? Why would that be concealed? The answer to that would be you clearly didn't want the president to be equipped with actual information about the vulnerability of our elections, because that would help him make his case that there were massive problems. And anything that would assist President Trump in making his case, anything that would assist Americans from having a clear understanding of how vulnerable our elections are, needed to be kept from you. And now, thanks to this intel community, led by people like John Ratcliffe at the CIA, led by Kash Patel at the FBI, led by Bill Pulte, previously Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence. Now we're finally getting information on this subject. In fact, I mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, now Bill Pulte as DNI. I want to remind you of something. Remember in April of last year, Tulsi Gabbard gets into a cabinet meeting, a public cabinet meeting. She sits down with the president of the United States. He asked for an update from her on everything she's working on. And she says, Mr. President, I want to tell you that we've dug into election machines, and we are very concerned about the vulnerabilities. We're discovering some massive vulnerabilities here that you need to know about. She shared that last April. Now, the media laughed that off as a conspiracy theory. There's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. The president revealing more information about this last night. Here's the president talking about the extent to which voting machines have been vulnerable for a long time, how much the intel community knew about it, and how little was shared by the government on that subject. Watch.
Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems, dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was.
Okay, this is
in the
great.
past.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, and we will pick this up again in our daily news wrap up. I'll include this video. But utterly amazing, isn't it? And you know, these networks, I would think that if they contradict what the president says when he's trying to give a public service address to the people of the United States, if they contradict that, they better have some damn good proof, or they should be fined millions, if not billions, of dollars for doing that by the Federal Communications Commission. You know, don't you think? Don't you think? I mean, he's trying to tell the people how our system, our government, our country is being undermined by foreign countries, and the mainstream media is basically calling him a liar without proof, because he has the proof that they're doing it. If they're saying that they're not doing it, then they have no intercoursing proof. So I would think they could be fined, as I said, millions, if not billions of dollars for doing that. Let me click on the Rumble link and
The
show you
director
that
of
this
national.
video does come from Bongino Report. This is Vince. The video I shared with you, I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. He's only had 3.84 thousand, okay? Dan had 4,500. He's only had 3,800, okay? Thumbs up. All right, let's see. And let's jump back here. And what was it? Viper Senior had given me my 6th thumbs up. That's great. Yeah, I've got 6 thumbs up now, so that's fantastic. Okay. Let's slide down here and let's see what Devory Darkins has to say. We're going to get off of the Trump speech a little bit and talk about Democrat crime policy backfires after felon targets governor's mansion. Imagine that. Okay, let's see what Devory Darkins has to say.
Let's get to the two major updates so far. One starts with the governor of Illinois and how his mansion was trespassed by a felon that was released on a policy that he had passed called the Safety Act. And secondly, the Chicago public schools just laid off 760 teachers and 801 student aides. Wait till we get into the numbers. I think you'll be stunned by them. But let's start with what happened with the governor.
One of the major problems we often highlight in Chicago stems from a decision by Democrat lawmakers to eliminate cash bail. Offenders are released almost immediately after arrest, and many of them then go on to commit additional crimes. And now we have got a very interesting example of the problem, this one with a little twist that the Illinois governor probably didn't see coming. Crime correspondent Jason Matera is here with details. Jason?
Yeah, ED SEAL J.B. Pritzker called his criminal justice reform the Safety Act. But an incident close to home may have given the governor a small taste of just how little safety his legislation provides.
Look in your own damn backyard, Governor. Look in your own backyard.
John Cabello was telling Pritzker to look in his own backyard because that's exactly where Dwayne Milton was found on July 4th. Authorities say Milton jumped the governor's fence shortly after 10 p.m. and wandered around the property until Pritzker's security detail apprehended him.
So this type of story is another affirmation on why we should always speak out against soft on crime policies, sanctuary city policies, because they do not lead to positive outcomes. In fact, they lead to situations like this, and some of the time they lead to fatal outcomes. Now, the bottom line is the Safety Act is everything but that, meaning because they feel sorry for people who get locked up in the system, they want to give them the opportunity to make bail even if they don't have the money, which is why Democrats believe in no cash on bail, right? Which is why someone like this is able to get out of jail or, released from custody on a temporary basis. And then what happens? They go back and they commit another crime. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. If you committed a crime, you're arrested, but then we release you back into the streets. And I'm not talking about a white collar crime. I'm talking about a violent crime. That's the problem with his policies. It was just, I think about a month ago, this policy actually led to someone being murdered. At any rate, I think it's interesting that this criminal showed up in his own backyard.
A man is charged for trespassing at Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's home in Chicago. Happened the night of July the 4th. According to the police report, 46-year-old Dwayne Milton was seen on camera jumping over a fence, walking in the backyard of Pritzker's home. He was quickly arrested, admitting to officers he had an outstanding warrant in Cook County for shoplifting. There's no indication he was armed or even knew that it was Pritzker's home. Milton's due in court for this on July the 27th.
Now, what's the chances they're not going to throw the book at him and they're going to let him off easy? I think the chances are actually high. But here's where it matters the most. The governor had security, so someone was able to stop him. But what if that was your backyard? Would you have been able to stop them in the middle of the night when you were asleep? Would you have known? Would you have had someone there to protect you? No. This is why their policies are flawed inherently. It's not even attacking them personally. Just look at the outcomes. They intend to keep people safe, but the outcomes do the very opposite, according to the numbers. And I'll give you one example. When a man is arrested 74 times, and throughout those 74 arrests, he'd had plenty of violent crimes, assaults, the system is broken.
And the only reason why that happened is because the governor has security 24/7 in all of the places that he lives. So if this was your backyard, the police would have not found this person. What would have happened?
And that question becomes even more important as Milton's criminal history is now coming to light. He's yet another Chicago man with more mugshots than fingers and was currently out on pretrial release for a slew of retail thefts. Police records show the longtime felon was arrested 3 times between April and May, only to be let go each time. Remember, no more bail in the state of Illinois. After his arrest in May, a Cook County judge reportedly placed Milton on electronic monitoring and limited his movement. But shocker, the guy whose rap sheet began in 1998 violated the judge's orders, which triggered an arrest warrant.
So there's a difference between throwing someone in the trash and keeping people safe. Okay. What do I mean by that? Democrats would have you believe conservatives want to throw men like this in the trash. No, we don't. What we want to do is keep people safe. That's the number one responsibility elected representatives have. Okay. So, how do you keep people safe? If they commit a violent crime, they should be locked up. If there's something mentally wrong with them, then they should still be locked up, but under the care of a mental health specialist. Why would you release them back into the community? In what world does that actually make sense? I'll tell you what world, the world titled Suicidal Empathy. And guess what? They get to make these decisions, and who gets to deal with the consequences? Well, in a place like this, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, the state of California, we can go on and on and on. So the bottom line here seems like the governor is getting a taste of his own medicine, but he had someone there to protect him. But what happens when it's someone who's not the governor? All right, let's go to our next update, and this is a big one. Speaking of the city of Chicago, we warned you this was going to take place. So remember I told you guys about the mismanagement of funds by the mayor, the fact that it led to the Chicago public school system in $1 billion deficit? Well, they had to lay off 760 educators today. Take a listen.
Mark, CPS has an almost $1 billion budget hole to fill, and besides layoffs, furloughs, a spending freeze, and more tax increment financing money, known as TIFs, is how the district plans to balance its budget.
Locked up for now, but in about a month, students will return to over 600 Chicago public schools with possibly less staff. To close a $732 million budget deficit, the district is laying off about 760 teachers, 801 teacher aides, and requiring 5 furlough days on non-attendance days for students. The Chicago Teachers Union called the CPS budget proposal dead on arrival.
All right, let's talk about something a little personal for me. I've been cycling recently to increase my endurance and obviously my health. And today's issues refresh 20%. Something is rotten inside the Chicago public school system. And it's not the students, by the way, it's the people in charge. Let me give you an example of this. All we have to do is look at the outcomes. 42% of students in the Chicago public schools can read. Just 42%. 27% can do math. Now, here's the kicker. Best places to teach. Illinois comes in at number 80 out of 624 other school systems. So you mean to tell me you're more likely to get paid, and this is more likely to be the best place for a teacher, but is it the best place for a student? The answer is no. That is the problem with the Department of Education and education as a whole in the United States of America. It seems to me that the educators are getting the best side of that stick and the students are getting the short end of the stick, if that makes sense.
The budget also calls for a mid-year spending freeze, no funding for assistant principals at schools with enrollment under 250 students, and 162 layoffs at the district central office, which were made public earlier this week. But the budget is not all about cuts. CPS plans to increase funding for bilingual and special education educators.
The budget.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I will include this in my daily news wrap up. I'm about halfway through this video. And it's amazing how these Democrat controlled states, their whole system just falls apart. I don't understand. But people just continue. At least we think people just continue to keep voting Democrat. Maybe this has something to do with what Donald Trump was talking about last night. Maybe these elections are controlled by countries like China so that their whole system falls apart. Obviously, China knows that Democrats are stupid, and that's why they continue to back them and put them in office, so they'll do the stupid shit that they do in order to destroy the city, state, and country. Pretty amazing. Let me click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Devory Darkins. It's the video I shared with you. Here, I'm going to make sure that I have that. Yeah, I'm going to put that in my daily news wrap-up so that we can watch the rest of that. I hope you give me a thumbs up as well and follow my channel. All right, let's jump back here. Let's see what Wendy Bell has to say. China stole the identities of 2/3 of America, yeah, and including a lot of the dead people as well. So I'm sure some of those did. Now, Wendy talked about voting by phone the other day. With this information out there, I don't think that would be the thing to do, is vote by phone. I know everybody has their own phone, but what if you have like 3 phones? I have 2 phones myself, okay? And my kids have a phone, the 2 older ones. The 14-year-old and 13-year-old have a phone. What would keep them from registering? I mean, they could, living here in Indianapolis, they could probably register in Los Angeles and Chicago and New York and Detroit and Minneapolis. They could probably vote 4 or 5 times. Of course, they'd have to vote Democrat. But at any rate, let's get on to Wendy Bell. Now, I'm going to start this during her introduction, okay? Not just the monologue, but her introduction, because she had a new introduction today. At least I hadn't heard it before, and it sounded pretty good, so I'm going to share that with you. Here we go.
4, 3, 2, 1. Wendy Bell, America's anchor mom, fighting for America 1 hour at a time. Welcome to the family.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. The election was rigged. I don't need you to get me elected. I need you once I'm elected. It was a dirty election. No longer just who gets to vote. It's about who gets to count the vote. It's happening right now in California. Whether your vote counts at all. It's appropriate.
That's how they count the votes.
Do you think it's about who gets to count the votes? To count the vote. Count the vote. Count the vote. That have an election, and 5 days later, they're nowhere close to picking a winner.
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked. It's about election subversion. You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
What? Do you have evidence?
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands. Who counts the vote?
3 hours of bold truth and excellence. You've just signed up for the WBR Army. Strap in. This is the Wendy Bell radio program.
Well, hello, America. Greetings to all of you across the beautiful fruited plain. This is the Wendy Bell radio program, and today, my friends, is the beginning of not just vindication. For those of us who've said something because we saw something, who paid the price for having common sense, for not going along with the crowd, for not taking the easy road, for spending the time, doing the digging, getting the answers, and presenting it to you, the American people. Today is the beginning of your vindication, my friends. And it is a glorious day, as always, to wake up in the United States of America. WendyBellRadio.com. Hey, guys, we just hit 8.4 million podcast downloads. Delighted to be with you. Common sense, conservative values delivered by a mom with no BS. Welcome home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. I don't know about you guys, but I knew no matter how bad things got, no matter how crooked things seemed, no matter how corrupt the government became, no matter how incredibly puppeted the media was, that there would be a day, that there would be a truth, that there would be an awakening. Is today the day? Well, I damn well hope so, but I got to tell you, there's one guy in this planet who's upset after President Trump's address last night, in which he very succinctly and not in a weave fashion delivered the story of election subversion to the American people. And he did not name John Ossoff. He did not go after the Democrats. He did not go after Hillary. He did not blame Joe Biden. If I'm waking up in the planet Earth today, The one person who'd be pissed would be Vladimir Putin. That guy has been the scapegoat. He's been the boogeyman. He's been the booga of everything that they have done. It's Russian collusion. He's a Russian plant. It's Russian intervention. It's a Russian plant for the laptop. Russia, Russia, Russia. And all the time it was China. Not like you're surprised because you've been paying attention. Last night, as 3 of the big TV outlets decided to kibosh the President of the United States with monster history-making news about the single largest election scam ever perpetrated in these United States, my friends. ABC, NBC, or ABC, who was it who carried it? Or didn't carry it? CNN, ABC, and NBC, I think. Didn't carry it, right? We don't want to be part of telling you lies. What the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years except lying to us? You lie about everything. You lie about things that ought not be lied about, things that we can see with our own eyes, like the vote count changing on the screen as we're watching it. In what world, ladies and gentlemen, does a vote tally ever go down? Well, it did, and we called it out. We took you to Michigan. We introduced you to the warriors there who last night were vindicated after their offices were, tossed, firebombed, what have you, after they were literally hunted for telling the truth about 2020 election fraud. Donald Trump mentioned of that peripherally, but the big story wasn't about him winning. He didn't even say that. It's about you and me and everybody else, all of us losing. China stole the election data, the poll data from 2/3 of America. 2 out of every 3 of you right now is impacted in the largest data breach ever. And the deep state knew about it and did nothing about it. They didn't say anything. They didn't wave any flags. They specifically left it away from the president. They did not tell anybody. Really. And so what was a breach of 5 to 10 million voter database names grew to 20 million. And within 2 years, by 2023, China had 220 million voter data sheets, if you will. They stole our identities. And you were kept in the freaking dark. Just like last night, those networks were like, you're not allowed to hear that. That goes against what we believe and what we've been telling you. Tell me how that's any different than the FBI and the Postal Service intercepting your ivermectin during the height of a global pandemic, when reasonable physicians were like, you know what? I'm having some good success with this thing called ivermectin. We should give it a go. Can't have it, because that throws off the narrative. Donald Trump last night, as president of the United States, wasn't making the case for you to all of a sudden say Joe Biden wasn't the president. Joe Biden was the president. We lived through 4 years of it. But if one freaking person had just had the stones to tell the truth, we wouldn't have gone through that absolutely sordid phase of American history. But had we not, who wouldn't you know about? You wouldn't know about Tony Fauci. You wouldn't know about the devious, diabolical experience going on with the CDC, the NIH, and the NIAID. You wouldn't know about China interfering in that. What else wouldn't you know about? You wouldn't know about Hunter's laptop. Oh, wait a minute. China paid him. China paid the Biden crime family syndicate. You wouldn't know about any of this stuff. Are we surprised Eric Swalwell was sleeping with this freaking Chinese spy? The Chinese have bought up our farmland. They steal our intellectual secrets. They come here on visas and green cards, and they have an obligation to the CCP to report back and to tell on the American people. What are we doing? My enemy isn't the freaking Democratic Party. It's not Hillary Clinton, who's dirty as stones, or Barack Obama or Joe Biden in his hyperbaric chamber, pretending to be even remotely coherent. It is the people who allow foreign governments to put you and me in danger, to take our vote. Do you know that because of the 220 million voter roll or registration things that were hacked by China, you know what they'd be able to do? They'd be able to go in, they could vote on your behalf. They could go in and change your voter registration, who you are, what you do, what you think. They could go in and they could register for you in another state, in another community. And then you show up to vote and they're like, that's so weird. Seems like you've already voted. And you say, no, I didn't. Well, just fill out this special provisional ballot. We'll put it over here in this little neat envelope, but we'll make sure, promise to make sure it's counted. This is the story that our children need to realize. This is the story all of the blue-haired, tatted up, pierced whack jobs who consider themselves progressive, socialist, communist, Marxist need to wake up and see. You've been played. You were played. You were made into this militia of ne'er-do-well malignancies, and you fester and you go out into our communities to create havoc. Meanwhile, the people you're tormenting are the ones who are trying to give you a freaking safe America, elections you can believe in, leaders who don't steal from you, Congress that shows up, that doesn't work with other governments, people who are honest, and when they put their hands on the freaking Bible and say those words, actually mean it. We want that for you. We fight for you every day. That's what this is. There is good and there is evil. Today is not about Democrat and Republican. It's not about red versus blue. It's not about Trump versus Clinton or Trump versus Biden. It is about we, the freaking people. And thank goodness those networks didn't cover it, because the interest in what the president had to say for 3 television networks to not cover it and then to come on immediately and fact check it tells everybody and his brother exactly what you and I have been talking about for the better part of 6 years. They're all in on it. They need fake voters to continue voting for them so they can continue stealing from you and they can always stay in power, period. I know it's not sexy because we say it all the time. But last night, President Trump proved it. Now what? We got a lot going on today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to hear from the president. We're going to hear from the media. We're going to hear from conservative independent journalists. We're going to talk about this all day. Hallelujah, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, John Solomon, some interesting information next.
Okay, let me get this up past our commercial break here, and we're going to run a little long, but I think we got some good information. So, I think.
Ho, 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 it's magic. You know.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. So here is what we learned that those 3 networks kept from their audiences last night in this presidential address. Look, all the president wanted to do was to directly give you the information. This is what we found. We're putting everything on our website, and it crashed the website, right? Website crashed. We're going to put all the documents out. President Trump said, read them. Make your own decision. Don't be cattle shooted by the media because they have an objective and it is not good for you. China gained access to 220 million U.S. voter files in advance of the 2020 election. They produced tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses in order to have Chinese nationals cast fraudulent mail-in ballots. 287,000, I believe, non-citizens are registered to vote in just 4 states, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder why those governors don't want to share their voter rolls. It's so weird. And evidence shows Venezuela compromised election infrastructure, allowing them to manipulate our voting systems. Look at all this stuff was kept from the president while he was president. Kept from him. John Solomon, who has taken a break from Just the News to work in this election integrity division at the White House with the president, he was on the War Room last night, and he's like, look, what we uncovered was a pattern of hiding from Trump and from Congress that is actionable proof our election systems were manipulated by foreign countries. It's not something that's a supposition. It is a fact.
Tonight's the opening salvo. It's the beginning of a longer exfiltration of information in the intelligence community. But what's important about tonight is to understand actionable intelligence, things that actually affected our security of our elections were not being told to the president. They were not being told to Congress. Policymakers couldn't make a decision because bureaucrats decided they were more important than a president or a congressman. And I'm very concerned about that ethos, because if it does it in elections, what about a foreign power, a war? What if someone doesn't want to tell the president about something else? There's a cultural stain in the intelligence community that this data shows. Now we're going to have to go back and look at other issues and see if this was a pattern in other forms of intelligence.
This is the unraveling. Trump's own NSA hid intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, from him. They hid evidence from the President of the United States about election vulnerabilities in his daily brief. We know U.S. medical databases containing 28 million records, including Social Security numbers, and voter registration data was breached by these foreign actors. And last night, NBC, ABC, and CNN all refused to cover this. We don't peddle in fake news, they said. No, that's all you have. John Solomon continues poring over millions of documents with the AG, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI chiefs that they had not seen before. This is all information within the last several weeks that was discovered. There is a purposefully broken chain of communication with deep state masters keeping quiet what they did not want Trump or his deputies to know about.
There's one document I saw, it's like 39 really important things that the intelligence community found about China and election meddling in 2020. Only 5 were ever briefed to a president. Only 5. That means 34 very important things that the CIA thought were important. They were being suppressed from a president. That is criminal from a national security standpoint. Now, whether it become criminal in a court of law needs to be determined. But the president, you heard him tonight. I want accountability. CIA director, NSA director, fire those who hid this. FBI director, go out and see if you can prosecute the Michigan case. So this comes with fixes and accountability. And if they do both of that, we enter into the November 26 elections with a lot more confidence that we're having a secure election in 26.
Yes.
And you know the bottom line of all of this? This isn't a partisan thing. This is an American thing. That's all we've ever said. Stop making it divisive. It's not. This is one thing, one entity, these United States. And each of us has been impacted by this. You know, we were called election deniers merely for identifying on election night when the numbers on our TV sets switched and Trump began losing votes. Hey, what is that? What's going on? When Brett Baer at Fox News called Arizona with 6% of the vote, we said, hey, what's that? What's going on? And when I went to bed in Pennsylvania and Donald Trump was up by 680,000 votes, and then I woke up the next morning and he had lost by 80,555, and I said, hey, what the hell is going? Election denier. Interesting that yesterday in Congress, so many Democrat senators were trying to get Todd Blanche and Jay Clayton to come out and say, who was it again who won the 2020 election? Why are you so worried that we don't believe it anymore? We never believed it. None of it ever added up. None of it ever made sense. Now it does, ladies and gentlemen. So let's hear what the president had to say. We clipped about 4 things. I think the most important stuff. And I'm interested in what you think. Join the conversation, wendybellradio.com. Live chat. I enjoy talking to you during commercials. We'll be right back on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. And this will be in my daily news wrap-up, so please tune in for that. Let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from
This
Wendy
is the
Bell
story.
Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I've given her a thumbs up. She's got a 2,600 thumbs up, okay? Let's see, where am I? Let me do a quick refresh over here. 20, yeah, I've got 10, so yeah, I'm right there behind her. I'm only like 2,500, 2,600 and thumbs up behind her. So I'm right there with her though. Okay, so here we go. Let me share some information here from U.S. Patriot Firearms. I found this and this sounded interesting to me.
Are often seen as going hand in hand with responsibility and proper preparation. Being a responsible owner involves a commitment to being well-trained, knowledgeable, and equipped with reliable safety gear.
Protecting a household requires more than just equipment. It requires a focus on safety protocols, secure storage, and a deep understanding of local regulations. Professional training is a cornerstone of safe ownership.
Comprehensive resources and expert-led courses help individuals develop the necessary skills to handle equipment safely and effectively. Whether the focus is on home defense or personal safety, personalized education tailored to specific needs ensures that safety standards are met.
Joining a community that values ongoing education and rigorous safety practices is a proactive step toward responsible citizenship.
Okay, here we are back at it, and I've just copied the comments or the chats into a comment so they will be a permanent part of the video here. I think I got everybody in there, Data 12 and our number 53 unique chatter this month. So thank you very much. Let me make this a permanent part of the video because as you know, when the live stream is over, the chat just kind of fades away into cyberspace. But let me remind you folks that these videos that I've shared with you here are videos that come directly from the producer. I've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel. And these videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted on Murtec.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth information here. This is your one-stop shop for information that you're not going to get on the mainstream media. Okay? The link to Murtec.com is in the description box. It's a free site. I don't ask for your name. I don't ask for your email address. I don't drop cookies on your computer or have a bunch of ads popping up in your face. You're pretty much anonymous when you come here to Murtec.com. And share this information out with your friends, contacts, and family members. Now, I'd like to share all this with you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to do so. But that's why I've put together Murtec Daily News Wrap-Up. It says I have 20 videos in here, probably about 9 or 10 hours worth of information. I have from Devory Darkins, where we left off in this podcast. Also, Wendy Bell Radio, we're going to take up where we left off. The Dan Bongino Show. Also, We the People News, X22 Report. on the fringe. There's Vince Dow. I'm going to have to move him up to the top there. So we'll get right into that before we get into everything else. But as for right now, go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a glass of wine and some cheese and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes so I can get this set up in Rumble Studio and we'll take off with this. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.